This is the Birth of a Mama podcast, where birth, and especially postpartum, matter. And motherhood is such a good time for this. It's like all I'm thinking this whole time is because identity is such a big piece of this and kind of like the jumping off point. And when you go through the transition, especially when you go from 0 kids to 1 kid, like now, the initial matrescence transition, I mean, the whole thing is like the most massive identity shift of your life, right? So like, what a perfect opportunity to then try to define who you are and who you want to be, because you can change everything you were and become someone new.
It's full of possibility. It's exciting.
Full of possibility, yeah. And that alone, that perspective alone, I think can be really uplifting and feel exciting and like very opportunistic. So so great. The transition into motherhood is often also, a confusing time, likely because this identity shift, in terms of identity. And you speak of knowing who you are. And I feel like we kind of touched on this already, since the identity piece is really the jumping off point. But when you do say this, if there's a mama out there right now struggling with her sense of self, whatever phase of motherhood that she's in, how can she kind of better come to know? Like, if she doesn't even know where to start and she's just completely lost, she's like, none of these words are resonating with me. Like, how does she even begin to like look at that and face that?
That can feel really hard, and it's super valid. And that's why I recommend really connecting yourself with people that have done it too, and getting yourself in a community of like-minded women that are walking the path too, because you have 2 options here, really. You can choose to connect yourself with people that could show you the way and have done it too, and help you walk the path and show you the way, or you can connect yourself with people that are where you're at too and find that camaraderie there, which honestly is what we see a lot of on social media, like these victim mentalities around motherhood. Like, nobody else understands the mental load of motherhood without thinking for a second that, wouldn't everybody have a mental load in their life? And truly, that's one perspective. Another perspective on the mental load, just briefly, is without the mental load in motherhood, you would literally not be able to do 90% of the things that you do for your kids on a daily basis without even having to think of it. You know where their socks are, where their underwear is, the pajamas they'll wear, or if they won't wear pajamas at all. If someone else came into my home and tried to do what I do, they would try and put pajamas on my kids, and my kids would be like, "What the frick are you doing? I sleep in clothes." I already know that. Right? I know who wants their crust cut off the sandwich and who wants it cut a specific way, and who I absolutely know do not dare cut their French toast. Don't put syrup on it. You just put it on a plate and you slide it over to them. Like, I know these things because I have a mental load. And it's the greatest, largest blessing to mothers when you're trying to parent and utilize your time and be efficient and effective. Like, you got to know your kids. You got to know your home. And that, to me, is such a privilege to know that not a single person could come into my home and know what I know. They just wouldn't. They wouldn't be able to know what my kids' favorite games are, their favorite show, how to help them when they get hurt, and what to do to make it all worse. They'd probably do all the things to make it worse by cutting his freaking French toast. Like, oh man, you cut it. You put syrup on it. No, you don't want to do that. What do you mean, everybody? Nope, he doesn't. Don't do that. But I know those things, right? So that's just that like brief point. You have to decide where you're going to associate yourself, and you can choose to stay where it's comfortable and you feel like, well, I relate to these people. Like, I relate to what's being said here. Okay. Do you want to though? That might be truly where you're finding like relation points and feeling comfortable and seen and heard. Are you feeling the way you want to feel though? Is that the community that you want to relate to? Or is there an idea of motherhood being something that is cherished and enjoyed? And what I just shared about the mental load in motherhood, that's a real perspective. I live by that. And guess how much it helps me every single day as a mother to not fall into that victim mentality? Tremendously. So maybe you say, well, I want to relate to Tessa, yet I'm just not there yet. There's just going to be a gap. To get from one point to the other, there's always going to be a little bit of a gap, and it might feel a little bit lonely at first. It's also going to feel way more purposeful, way more intentional, like a silence you're craving instead of the constant need for noise and validation and acceptance in certain areas. Like, to get that from outside sources, you're starting to get it from yourself because you're getting to know yourself a little bit better. And if you're the mom listening to this feeling like, I don't even know where to start with this, I'm not resonating with the words that Tessa said, and I don't know what my power words would be, and I just have no idea who I am anymore, can you tell me who you want to be? And if the answer is no to that, it's only because you haven't been thinking about it. It's not because you have no sense of who you want to be. It's just because it hasn't had the opportunity to acquire your attention yet. So that's the first question I would ask you, is just tell me who you want to be. If there weren't limits, if there weren't fears, if there weren't experiences and stored trauma and all these emotions and truly all the things that could change. If you really think about it, most everything can change. Change is the only constant. So just because you have a trigger today doesn't mean you'll have it forever. You just haven't healed that one yet. Probably because you're trying to do the same things. So just answer the question, who do you want to be? And if you're like, Tessa, I don't know who I want to be, well, then you need to go sit down with a pen and piece of paper and figure it out. That just means that your mind has been allowed to go so long only thinking about what you don't want. And that's just mindset. Your mind has to be conditioned, and it's going to feel hard to start thinking about what you do want. Let it feel hard. It felt hard for me to decide I'm not angry. It felt hard for me to look at the way I was treating my husband. It felt hard for me to question what my relationship was going to be like with my son if I were to treat him the same way I was acting, right? All of that felt hard. And it was so transformative. It was so purposeful. It was so intentional. And it has served me 100 times over because I made the changes. I took the steps. I changed course. And there were times that, yeah, it felt lonely and extremely fulfilling, where I didn't have very many friends. And I will tell you, even to this day, there aren't very many people that I talk to on a regular basis because I'm just so in my motherhood. I'm so in where I'm at right now. And I know one day my house is going to be quiet and I'll have hours upon hours to call people. And right now, I want to make sure that the people that call me every day are the ones that are in my home, like right now. Those are the ones that I want calling me every day and excited to tell me about the great things going on or the things that they just feel like knocked them off their feet and took the wind out of their sails. Like, I want to hear from my kids when they get older, and that means they need to hear from me right now. And to me, that's my biggest value and priority, is staying in it with them. And I do socialize a lot because I coach. So I'm either working or I'm with my kids, and I work in my basement. So there's no divide. Like, my child was literally just at the door. And that's the way I want it. It's exactly how I want it. So you have to start asking yourself who you want to be. And that might, you might stare at the page for a hot minute, go for a walk, and have some answers come to you then.
Yeah, that's a very deep question, like who you want to be, because it can literally be anything. I mean, the possibilities are endless, right?
Possibilities are endless.
Can almost feel overwhelming, but yeah, but that's really, that is, I mean, it's an open book, especially with this shift in your identity as becoming a mom. Like, you are forever and permanently changed, so you have this window, this chance to now be someone different. And if you don't know who that is, you have now the chance to figure that out. And I want to keep going, but also touch back on just one thing that you said, because it was so profound to me, because I even struggle with this, and I talk about it and I hear it, and it's so prevalent in social media and just everything right now. And it's the mental load, and your perspective on it is literally the opposite of what everyone is saying. And even I get in a tizzy about the mental load all the time, and about how it all falls on me. And like you said, like, you're the one that has all of this knowledge, which really should feel powerful, because it's like you are needed in a way. But then that can also feel overwhelming of like, well, what if I'm not around, or I need to go somewhere, and like it's all on me and no one knows how to do these things. So I think there is still maybe an importance of like your spouse or your partner or whoever is like the other care person knowing as well.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
But that perspective is wow. Like, that for me, the whole time I'm listening, I was like, oh my God, how have I never challenged I've never challenged the thought about it being this horrible, almost like sentence that we have to then carry.
You have to think about it too. It's so commonly affirmed and just screamed from the rooftops. Everyone's got an example, and they just want to chime right in because it's how they're feeling too, and nobody stops to challenge the perspective that's creating the feelings. They're just ruminating on the feelings, and the feelings are just there to deliver a message. And a lot of those messages are so valid. They're so valid. I live by validate feelings, scrutinize thoughts. So any feeling that I have, I will absolutely validate it. I'll spend time with it. I'll cry. I'll scream into a pillow. Like, I will do whatever I need to do to feel my feelings fully. And that is, to me, a full life. Like, I want that. And whatever thought I have, oh, it gets scrutinized. And what I love about the word scrutinize is it sounds like a negative word, and it's not. It means to take under careful examination. That's what it means, to take a closer look at it. Like, that's not a negative thing. So I love that word because it's just so, like, looks like a little deceiving, like a little tricky. And it's so good to just scrutinize your thoughts and understand too, like, no part of what I'm saying is the village doesn't matter. Tessa doesn't have very many friends and people. I don't live by family. Like, I had a very intentional idea of what my motherhood was going to look like, and I've worked every ounce that I could to make it happen. So my husband and I do function as a highly efficient team, and it's a lot of times tap in, tap out. You're doing this, and a lot of transitions that come with us, especially as we're expecting our fourth child, and there's learning curves, and a lot of diversity in our parenting styles and perspectives. Just because I think this way doesn't mean he does. Just because I feel this way doesn't mean he does. And it's not about controlling the way he thinks or the way that he feels. It's about being somebody that can hold space around different perspectives and feelings and still love who I'm showing up as simultaneously. And when you really think of, like, wow, how come I've never challenged that? Why would you? It's so much more comfortable to accept that, like, oh, that's why I'm feeling this way. Because I have this mental load and it's unbearable. Look at the research shows. the results are in. Every mother feels this way. And it's just interesting. It's interesting to me, and I have so much compassion for the mothers that do find themselves in that perspective and they loop it, and they sometimes don't want to hear a different perspective. A lot of people don't like my work. They don't like what I'm doing. They don't like what I have to say or the content I'm making, because they don't want that new perspective. They don't want there to be a different perspective to the mental load, because what would that mean? That there's another way. And what would that look like? That would mean really challenging yourself, who you've been, how you've been choosing to look at things, because this isn't a fact. Facts are not as frequent as we think. Most people are just sharing freaking thoughts. Like, they're just sharing opinions, perspectives that are not facts. So the mental load of motherhood, it has blessed me tremendously to just change my perspective of it. And I understand that it's not something everybody wants to change their perspective on. And that's okay. That's not my job to make sure everybody thinks one way. And on that note too, diversity is a really good thing. It is. So the only way I was able to come up with that perspective is because there's a widespread acceptance that the mental load of motherhood is so negative and unbearable and devastating to mothers. And the only way I was able to see it differently is because that perspective was there. So diverse parenting, diverse experiences, diverse perspectives are good things. And especially if you have a spouse that isn't quite on board with everything you're doing, just remember that diverse experiences are really good for your kids. They're really good for you. They're really good for your spouse. And change is the only constant. So the best thing you can do when you want to create a change in your home is to burn hot coals on everybody else's head. And that just means show up and do it. Be the difference maker. Be the way maker. Like, you've got to be the one that does it first, if that's what you want. And now that that's in your heart of, like, oh, I do want to see change here, it's not going away. You will not forget. So you'll either feel poorly that you're not doing it, or you'll feel nervous trying to do it. We'll feel a little bit afraid of doing it. We'll feel a little bit uncomfortable doing it. Either way, you just have to choose. Like, yeah, I feel afraid and I'm going to do it anyway, because I am interested, engaged, and courageous. Like, right? We pull on those power words for us. We're like, this matters to me. I'm going to do it. and we start seeing changes in ourselves. But yeah, the challenging perspectives, there's widely accepted perspectives. That doesn't make them facts. And that's very empowering, again, for mothers to just be able to question what they're choosing to think. What do I think about my kids? Is that a fact? No, that's just a thought. And it frees you. It frees you from that that weight of like the only way to think about something.
Yeah, so good. So good. The scrutinizing. I'm such a skeptic too with research and like other things, and I love kind of taking that piece of me that kind of already exists and then just applying that to my own thoughts. Like that's so genius. So totally gonna start doing that.
Great. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Keep me updated. Report back.
I will. So Tessa, you of course talk a lot about the benefits of journaling, and you say how it can help with, you know, feeling more energetic, feeling calmer, feeling capable, fulfilled, all these things that I would say most people probably want to feel, right? Yeah. Those sound like nice, good feelings. And I just absolutely love this. So, you know, who doesn't want to feel this way? So can you explain or just talk about, you know, what is alignment journaling, which is what you talk about, and why is it so effective for building a strong mindset in motherhood?
Yeah. So alignment journaling is the practice that I've been using for several years to condition my mindset. And it's funny, I created it into a course not because I thought it was, oh my gosh, this great idea. Like I didn't think I was doing anything unique or different or special. And then one time, this was a few years ago, I was journaling every day for 100 days. I was doing one of my friends' 100-day challenges, and I was like, you know, I'm going to journal 100 days in a row and just see what happens. And I started sharing on my Instagram story, and I was just flooded with questions. What do you journal about? How do you write? But like, what do you actually journal about? How do you fill that whole page? How much time do you spend doing that? What the frick do you have to possibly say? And I'm like, I don't think people actually know how to journal. Like, I don't think it's this common thing as I think it is. You know, when you do something so regularly, it's just like natural and easy for you. You don't really question if somebody else can do it. The same thing goes for me with perspective. I truly believe I have a gifted perspective because I've had so much trauma. I think I've earned it. I will take that badge of honor. And when I have this perspective, it took me a long time to be like, oh, not everybody sees it that way. Not everybody understands that. Not everybody thinks that way. And what I love about what I do is I keep it all simple, very intentionally. There's a whole bunch of science that backs it up, and I just make it practical and something you can implement, and keeping it simple. I do that with mindset tools in my courses, and then with alignment journaling too. So when I realized, okay, there's at least a handful of people out there that would be interested in me teaching them how to journal, I'll make a little course. So I made a little course, and by little, I'm a very wordy person, as you can imagine. If you like mindset, you probably like words, and they flow. So I made a lengthy course and, put it out there and just said, yeah, this is alignment journaling. This is what I do. If you want to learn step by step how to journal, here you go. And obviously, I create courses for a living anyway, so I saw it as a really great entryway product to my 12-week course. Before someone like jumped all in into that, give them something to try, just one tool. And I was like, oh, what a genius idea. And I was already teaching my clients how to do this too. And the course has done exceptionally well. It has, just blown my expectations out of the water just for what it's done for mothers. And what it continues to do for me in the daily practice of writing. It's how I prepare for birth. It's how I prepare for postpartum. It's how I truly prepare my mind to handle contractions. I have home births too, to feel safe and secure and trust myself through birth. It's how I really consider the wife I want to be when I'm faced with a difficult circumstance in my marriage. I turn to journaling to figure out what I'm going to do about it. Like, I turn to journaling to figure out who I want to be and what I want to do next. And I don't think it's like it's not a natural way for our mind to do things, yet it uses a natural process of what our mind is already doing. It just creates like a one shift difference. So alignment journaling is the practice of mental rehearsal. That's what it is. That's what it's based on. And you have to remember, you are always mentally rehearsing something. You just always are. That's what our mind does. It loves to stay prepared, ready to go, and predict what's going to happen next. Now, these predictions that our mind makes happen based off of our past experiences. So this is important to understand when you're trying to change predictions that you're going to make. You have to create new experiences. If you keep doing the same things, your mind is literally incapable of creating a new prediction. And if it doesn't create new predictions of at least who you're going to be and what you're going to do next, you're going to do the same thing. That's why so many mothers can say, I want to stop yelling. Okay, I'm not going to yell again. And then they go yell again. Why? Because they didn't actually teach their mind to do something different. It's not because they can't stop yelling. It's not because you can't stop feeling angry or criticizing your spouse or gossiping with friends or scrolling social media or the hard things that you're like, oh my gosh, if I could just stop eating ice cream before bed. Like, I just want to break that one habit. How do I? Okay, I'm just going to tell myself, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then you do it again because that's what your brain is programmed to do. It is programmed to take your direction and fulfill it. Whatever the programming is, it is designed to do that. It is fascinating. So having that understanding, I formed my writing practice around what I do want, who I do want to be, what I do want to see happen, the way I do want to show up, how I do want to feel, what I do want to experience, just everything around what I do want, and mentally rehearsing over and over and over again what that looks like, what that feels like, creating emotion on a piece of paper, which is entirely possible because of another natural function in your mind. So remember, experiences come in, predictions go out. That's our first natural function that we are using, and that's mental rehearsal. You're already doing this. You are mentally rehearsing how your child is going to fight changing their diaper, and you're mentally rehearsing how you're going to get tense and frustrated and yell at her and have like an aggressive sharp movement or whatever it is, and then we're going to be pissed about it for the next 3 hours until the next diaper change. You've mentally rehearsed the whole thing. Your mind played it out. It's like, oh, easy, piece of cake. I can take it from here. Like, I know what's coming. And your mind is a prediction making machine. It's not broken. That's what's so important to understand is if you feel, okay, I have a negative mindset, I have a victim mentality, congratulations. Your brain is doing its job. It's not broken. It's not flawed. You're not incurable or too far gone. Like, no, your mind just literally proved that it's actually quite efficient at its job. It's doing an excellent job in its frame of mind because it's just taken what you told it you want to do through mental rehearsal and learned how to do it faster. How can I skip a step? How can I get to this angry feeling faster? Because I am angry, so I need to create that more. It's all programming. It's very fascinating. So anyway, we're using the power of mental rehearsal. You're already doing it. And that's a key function of your brain, making predictions. And then the second thing that we're doing is realizing that your brain, as it is right now, does not know the difference between something you believe happened and something that's actually happened. I know that sounds bizarre. It is so true though, because we can imagine you had a dream and your husband did something really dumb in the dream. You're pissed, you wake up, and you believe it. And you turn to him and you're like truly feeling angry, even though you know that was only a dream. Your brain doesn't care. Because emotionally, oh, you were in it. And he was in it. And you didn't like that. And he needs to know that just happened. And like logically, your mind is like, I'm going insane. Like I am freaking losing it. I'm believing my dreams now. Again, you're not going insane. You're not crazy. Your brain is functioning really well. It's doing a great job. You just have to be the one telling it what to do now. It has perfected these systems. And now you have to tell it what to do better. So when we use this idea of, my mind doesn't know the difference between something I believed happened and something that has actually happened. So we can... Maybe you have an older child that came home from school or you got an email of a report card and it's like, there's some F's on there and you're like already envisioning what happened. And you have come up with a story that you fully believe is the fact and you're already feeling pissed before he's even had a chance to tell you his side. Like you've already decided how you felt about it and you fully believe it's because he didn't turn in a single assignment. That's why. Actually, that's not entirely true. So we can believe that. We can mix up our memories. We can swear that person said XYZ, this time, this date, or this is the way it happened when the trauma was stored. And then there's a video that shows the moment of what actually happened and you're wrong. And yet we believed it, right? We can go back to the text. And the text says, Thursday at 2, not Wednesday at 12. You were wrong, and yet you believed it. And you had all these feelings around it. You were taking actions aligned with that belief. And it's so powerful. This is happening every day of your life. So alignment journaling uses that. It uses the power of your brain not knowing the difference between something you believe has happened and has actually happened, so long as there's emotion involved. So long as you feel something about it, your brain will accept it as truth. It's amazing. So in our mental rehearsal, we truly just create a vision of what we want and have the emotional attachment behind it, like really play it out behind it so that our brain can accept it as truth. And when it does that, it files it as an experience. The more experiences you have doing things you're proud of, handling it really well, taking that breath before you respond, going to bed early, waking up and doing your morning routine, the more experiences you have, pen and piece of paper, the more you have of that, the better predictions your mind will make. Because it thinks it has all these new experiences, even if it really doesn't. But it thinks it does. So now it's easier to wake up in the morning. Why? Well, because I've done that like at least 38 times. Like it's really cool. But that's why alignment journaling is so effective. It's helped thousands of women through birth, postpartum, overcoming angry feelings, changing their responses to their spouses, pursuing things that they felt nervous to do, like starting, it's literally been used for the widest range of things you could imagine, every circumstance, starting businesses of their own, being able to enjoy their time around their in-laws where before they felt very frustrated around them, like truly just creating so much change that it's an honor just to be able to hear from them like what they've used it for. And inside of that community, we use that framework, and then every week I send them like journaling examples, because sometimes you can look at the page and feel a little bit stuck, like, okay, what am I going to journal about today? Or and the course framework helps them learn that. And I love to just continue expanding it. Just expand. So every Monday I send them a journaling email, and once a month we have a coaching session together, and that keeps their practice very effective too, because they're learning new things, new perspectives about mental load that they never considered before, and then they can take it back to their journaling.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This sounds like such an incredible tool.
It is.
For anyone, really. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is like, applicable way beyond just motherhood, but especially for motherhood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wanting to just implement anything in your life. Your life is going a certain way. You're not happy with it. You want to change. You're not really sure how to make that happen. It sounds like this could be how to make that happen in a very concrete, step-by-step, here's what you do. Now you just have to do this simple task regularly, right? Yeah. And then that's really going to make a difference. That sounds amazing. I really want to join. I've been considering doing it, and things keep coming up, and I'm going to commit and do it because I really need mindset help and work. And, I'm in therapy. I've been doing things like that, like practically my whole life since I was a teenager. And it's like things still come up, right? Yeah. So having another tool that I feel like is so accessible, like something like a journal prompt or something that I can just go to my pen and my paper. Yeah. I can always come back to that, is really empowering. And I feel like, it's accessible to anyone, anywhere too, is the thing. And
that's the cool thing is once you learn the practice, there could be a time that you don't have your pen and piece of paper, right? And you want to best utilize your time. You want to take your mind to a new place. You could use the exact same framework, just mentally. And while there is tremendous power in writing, like I know there are some people that say, I don't like to journal. I've never gotten into it, things like that. I'll say, first of all, you don't need a lot of time to do it. 5 minutes a day, done consistently, you can make profound changes in just 5 minutes a day. Just so long as it's an intentional practice and you're following that framework, that 5 minutes matters. That's like a 5-minute experience with your kids, a 5-minute conversation with your kids, a 5-minute conversation with your spouse. It's important and it makes a difference, right? So very little amount of time is required. I personally like to journal for 15 to 20 minutes every morning. Like I journal about everything. and I love it. And writing, for people that say, oh, yeah, can I just do like voice text or or type it out? I would say challenge yourself to write for 5 minutes. Even if you say you don't like it, just Just force yourself to do it, because writing has a very profound way of slowing down your mind. Your mind is rapidly moving. Remember, 60,000 thoughts a day, like rapidly trying to go on to the next thing. And when you force it to hold one single thought for 30 seconds, that's how long it takes me to write one thought out and fill one line and like a little bit onto the next one. It's approximately 25 to 30 seconds. That means my brain was just disciplined and forced to think of that one single thought for 30 seconds. How often do we do that? Not often. So pen to paper, right? Writing it out, slowing things down is extremely regulating, and it creates a new focus and clarity mentally that helps us overcome those negative thoughts and the noise and the overwhelm going on in our mind, because we never stop to slow things down. We want to go to the next fastest thing. Well, it's just faster for me to type it. That's the point. That's why I'm telling you not to. That's why you're not going to type it. And it's different. It's counterculture. You know, we're supposed to look for fast, easy, convenient, and I'm asking people to do what's hard. It takes longer, and it's challenging, you know?
Yeah, but there is something to be said about actually writing something down. It really, I never thought of it as slowing your thoughts down. I always just thought, I don't know, there's something about me physically writing the words that like makes it stick. But that makes sense. Like you're only focusing on the words that you're writing, because you can't be focused on two different thoughts at one time, right? So it really does force you to slow down, and it kind of brings back that intention, and you're really focused on what you're doing, and what you're doing is making a change of, you know, how you want to show up in your life and who you are, and all these things we've been talking about for this whole episode. So that's amazing. What a great tool. You have also just so many realistically useful pieces of content on your Instagram that, you know, people can just scroll and see, and your highlights and all that. Is that the best way for listeners to connect with you? Or if anyone is like, oh my gosh, this is really, you know, interesting, or I'm really resonating with this, is that the best way to connect? And if someone wants to join your alignment journaling course or work with you in other ways, you know, where should they go for that?
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for recognizing that. I love to lead with value and prove it can be done before you spend a single dollar on any of my courses. And I want you to be so convinced after just consuming my content, from the podcast or an email or a mindset swap or tool that I put on Instagram, that your life will be profoundly better with these tools than having that dollar that you spent in your bank account. You know, like I want you to believe that before you make this jump, because that's how you're actually going to do the course. Like, I don't want it to be another course that we buy and we'll get to and then it's not used. No, I want you to be fired up and know my life is about to change drastically, and I'm happy to see that money out of my account so that I can have all of this in my life instead. And sometimes it's hard to portray that when it comes to mental health, right? It's really easy to like show a return on investment when you talk to a business owner or somebody that is gonna get financial gains. And the coaching that I do with mothers, it's about the long-term relationships with our children. It's about the example that we set. It's about how you're feeling every day in your motherhood when you cook breakfast and when you take your kids out of the tub, or you're cleaning the water off the floor that they splashed everywhere. Bless my boys. You know, that's my promised return on investment. And you can't put a number on it. So like I try so hard to give as much as I can and lead with that value and teach you something you can implement right then and there, because it can feel scary to make an investment in something and not be able to put a number on the return, like just in our mind. So thank you for recognizing that. When getting connected with my work, Instagram is definitely somewhere that I'd say I'm like most active. I'm on there each day. My reels will have new pieces of like perspective or a tool that you can implement, a shift that you can try. Just a new way of viewing things is always my goal, in very practical ways. So I'm most active there. The alignment journaling course can be found at alignmentjournaling.com. So very easy there. That's just the web name. And then I don't know when this episode's going to air. Twice a year, though, I run a 12-week group session through my signature course, Mind Body Alignment. And that's where I was saying, like, I have my 12-week course, and I wanted people to have just a first step. Like, test the water, see if this works for you, and then choose your next step. So yeah, we have our signature 12-week course, Mind Body Alignment, which is all about self-discovery and healing work. Because I told you experiences come in, predictions go out. An apple tree is not going to produce oranges. So if you're getting oranges and you wanted apples, we go into mind body alignment, we do the self-discovery work to find the roots behind that feeling of anger, the roots behind the victim mentality, the roots behind this really devastating identity that you've been holding on to. We find the roots to all of that so we can start weeding. We've got to start really pulling things out and then growing something better. In order to do that, like weeds overtake a garden. I'm a big gardening fan, and I think gardens bring the best insights and analogies for mindset work. But if you have a single weed in your garden, oh man, it can uproot 12 plants around it. Like they're so overpowering, and they can be deceiving. Sometimes they look like a flower, and you're like, crap. Is that though? Like, I think that's getting out of hand and it hasn't borne any fruit for me. Like, I don't think this is a good idea anymore. You try to uproot it and it lifts out 15 other plants alongside with it. And the same thing goes with negativity. Negativity is extremely contagious, toxic, destructive, and it's not all bad. So negative thoughts help keep us safe. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say, hey, look at that over there, because that could go wrong. And they help us make informed decisions. Negativity is a valuable thing. It's just we're not meant to live there. We're not meant to create every connection in our life and relationship and decision in our life based off of negativity. That's not creation. That's not empowerment. So in my courses, that's just a beautiful place to start weeding those thoughts and realizing what, if left untouched, would overtake this entire garden that I really want to see come to fruition. And my courses give you the opportunity to do that. So my Instagram account at Tessa Romero _ alignmentjournaling.com gets you to the journaling course. And then just getting connected on my email list is the best way to figure out when the next 12-week session is going to happen. And yeah, going to have a baby in July, so you can stay tuned for pregnancy and postpartum mindset.
Yes, so exciting. And congrats on baby number 4. I didn't say that throughout, but I meant to. So
that's okay. We're excited.
Yeah. And then just one more thing before I let you go, because I know I could talk to you for hours and hours, but
I love this.
I want to let you go soon. But I see these like amazing retreats that you do. Are those related to the 12-week course, or are those something separate? Yeah, so
they work in conjunction with my 12-week course. So the way that the retreat is not the 12-week course. That's what I personally love about it. The retreat is about regulation, emotional release, really creating that space. Because like I said, emotions are energy in motion. So until you move that emotion, you're still going to have like lingering feelings of it. And what we want is to experience that like fully regulated nervous system. What does that feel like? Well, it can be hard to do all of this work on yourself and focus on emotional release and nervous system regulation while staying in the same environment. So I like to create these retreats where 13 women get together, and it's myself and my staff that I bring together that have different strengths. And we focus on different forms of release work, releasing shame, releasing old identities, releasing these thought patterns, and creating space for something new. So the Revive Retreat is very special, near and dear to my heart. We've had 3 extremely successful retreats, and our next one is tentatively going to be during the New Year's Mind Body Alignment of 2026. So it's about 2 years out, which can feel so hard for myself and those waiting for it. And it's, like I said, motherhood's the most important thing to me, that when I have this baby, I just didn't want to rush out of any season. Like I knew every season was going to come to an end anyway. And I didn't want anything on my calendar that was going to take me away for 5 days and potentially like wean sooner or need to do something to intervene. And so that was that difficult decision. And yeah, the retreat really is in conjunction with Mind Body Alignment. So you would experience a lot of that clearing out, the self-discovery and healing work, just entering that 12-week course. And then in a couple years, if you want to see us at the Revive Retreat, we'd love to take care of you there, hold space for your emotions to be felt and moved through so they can finally have an out. And then creating new feelings, connections, and tools so that when you go back home, you're prepared for the circumstances, because obviously our circumstances don't change when we leave them. We go right back to them, and then we are changed. And that's how we can go about creating different change.
Amazing. Amazing. It all sounds incredible. I hope that, people resonate with this. I'm sure they will. So we're going to link all of that in the show notes, your Instagram and your courses and all of that amazing stuff. So, well,
thank you, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Tessa, for coming on the podcast and sharing all this insight and just amazing, valuable information for mamas out there. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for inviting me and letting me share my heart with your sweet community. And I hope that it made a big difference for them in a meaningful way.
Oh, I'm absolutely confident that it did. And,
Good.
I'd love to have you on again in the future. Maybe we can get you back on and you can share your birth stories and your postpartum experience at some point.
That would be a dream, because birth, postpartum, pregnancy, those are my favorite times. And when I truly find like more pieces of myself and perspectives that I would have never gained if it weren't for those experiences. So I actually have my third birth was like my favorite life experience. It was wonderful. So yeah, we can come back another time and talk all things birth. I would love that.
Awesome. That would be, honestly, that's how the podcast started, was a birth and postpartum, mostly a postpartum story, but of course you can't get to postpartum without pregnancy and birth. So, sharing all those things. So yeah, I would love. That would also be a dream for me to have you back on and share. Maybe we'll wait until after your fourth is here and you can kind of have all of them to talk about. So
I would love that.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you, Natalie. Thank you. Friendly community, Birth of a Mama. I appreciate you all.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at the.moms.nutritionist and subscribe to this channel to be notified of each new episode. And if you'd like to support the podcast even further, please like this video and share it with a friend or anyone who could benefit from watching. This helps get the word out there, which helps moms heal and thrive.